Hello and welcome. This is Enlightened Connections, a space where unseen threads are illuminated. Between people and spirit, between animals and their humans, and between the everyday and the extraordinary. I'm your host, Lisa Aston Michael, medium, healer, and animal communicator. And I invite you each week to join me as I share conversations and practices that bring light, healing, and connection into your world. Welcome. Today I am so delighted to welcome my very special guest, Rose Dudan. Rose is founder of Wild Reiki and Shamanic Healing, LLC. She is an animal communicator, Reiki master teacher, and Rose was a pioneer in Reiki for animals back in 1996. She is a shamanic energy healer and author of the books Tales of a Healer, Animals, Reiki and Shamanism, and Out of the Darkness and Other Animal Tales. Her classes, sessions and ceremonial work are inspired by wild and domestic animals who have issued a call to action for personal and global healing. And as Rose likes to say, when the animals share with us who they are, they also show us the way back to who we are. So welcome, Rose.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm so excited to be here because it's been a long time since we've had a conversation.
Yeah, it's been a long while. I was just going to say, let's take a step back for a moment. We first met some 12 years ago when I hosted a podcast called Reiki by Lisa. And at that time, Wild Reiki and Shamanic Healing was one of the first professional energy healing practices for people and animals in the US. So for people that are new to what your work is, or perhaps new to me, remind us again about the principal philosophies of Wild Reiki and Shamanic Healing and how animals as teachers and healers work with you in your healing practices.
That's a really... I'm never good with the sound bites.
That's okay. Take your time.
I guess my mission is building bridges between people and animals.
Yeah.
And it's always been that from the very beginning. Reiki was my doorway to all things energy. But prior to that, of course, I'd had a strong connection with animals all my life. But taking a class in Reiki, the attunement, it was during the attunement process, and it just literally woke me up. I know people talk about midlife crises. I think I was in the middle of one of those because it felt like I didn't have any meaning or purpose. And I was searching, and I'd always loved animals, but I knew I was not destined to be a vet. I'm no good at science. And in that attunement, all of a sudden, I knew that I was a healer. And I knew that I would work with animals. And that was the start of my journey. But it was like, all of a sudden, the spirit world went, gotcha! You've been playing for a long time.
Yeah.
They kind of jumped on me with, like, I guess you could say all 4 feet. And it was my learning curve went in, like, it wasn't a curve, it was an upward trajectory in having my awareness raised.
Right.
And I started out with saying, okay, I'm opening a practice for animals. Thing is, animals, domestic ones, come with people.
Oh, yeah. That's always the glitch, isn't it? Fly in the ointment.
And I didn't have a problem with working with people. But what the animals said to me was, you need to work with people because they're the ones that make the changes in this world. They're the ones who make the difference. We want you to be the bridge. We want you to be that connection. And I went, OMG.
I have to work with people.
I'm so much more comfortable with animals, really.
Yeah. I totally get that. And it's amazing. Two things. First of all, Reiki seems to be such the doorway. Most healing practitioners, whether they're, they go in the energetic direction or the shamanic direction, there's always Reiki. Reiki is the doorway, the gateway that we seem to be presented with from the animals. And I think perhaps they feel that that's their easiest way to get us to move forward to them or connect with them. And secondly, for me, it was when you start out and you realize, I want to do Reiki for animals. I want to help the animals. It's incredible how often it comes back to the animals saying, we're okay. We need you to work with the people, because it's the people. Then you can help us on a much bigger scale. We've got it sorted. The people need the help so that they can help make our lives much better all round. Yeah. I probably haven't worded that right, but
no, it's true. I mean, we have a huge impact on the earth.
Yeah.
No one, I don't think, is going to argue with that, considering how we used to be, tribal and indigenous, and now all of a sudden we're using the earth for our own purposes rather than trying to work in harmony and balance. And in the process of doing that, we've lost connection with all our relations. And that's everybody, the stone people, the plant people, the animal people, the winds, the wiras, and so on and so forth, because in shamanism, everything's alive. But anyways, I'll back up to the Reiki thing. It's interesting you said, it seems like a doorway for a lot of people. And this is just my personal feeling and experience, but I think the reason for that is because the attunement process in Reiki literally reconnects people with what they call universal life force energy. We could call it source. It's limitless, and it is the life force that runs through everything. And my experience with that was like the thing I have not actually made this comparison before, but when I was young, I was very fervently Catholic and wanted to be a nun. And I had an experience in church one day where I was sitting there praying, and it was like a light came down and hit me. I get emotional. And it was beautiful. And it was deeply moving. And I felt like I was part of something much bigger. And what I experienced during the attunement process had some similarities to that.
Wow.
So it's a connection with spirit, with the life force, with divine, if you want to go there. I don't think about it that way. I just think about it, it's what connects us all.
Yeah.
It's the life force that runs through absolutely every living being and the ones we think of as non-living. So anyways, it literally, to speak only about Reiki, the attunement process enables you to let go of things that no longer serve you in that moment. And in my case, it opened me up to the part I'd hidden since I was a teenager, when I first started to discover my intuitive abilities and my awareness of energy. And I grew up in a very small town and very, part of the church, although I was moving from that at the time. There was nobody to talk to. I mean, our library was literally the old one-room schoolhouse,
Yeah.
And it was a small town. So I just went, that's really scary, and I can't think about that. And bam, I shut that door. And it took years of ignoring the spiritual side, I guess you could say, or the energetic side, until the attunement process in Reiki, which just blew the doors right off.
Yeah.
And I started to have experiences that I thought were Reiki, but people were like, I haven't had that happen. And it was like the shamanic side woke up too. And I started attracting allies that would be more in the shamanic realm than in the Reiki realm. That's when the Bobcat Health She Walks came into my life. And I started to receive guidance, and it's like, go here, do this. Nothing that I would go, well, that's wrong. Just the things that went, follow the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
And those breadcrumbs basically led me to the zoo animals.
Yeah.
Yes, I had been working in my healing practice. I'd been working with animals and some people and teaching Reiki. But I was at the zoo, and I know I've told you this story before, but perhaps your listeners haven't heard it. I've always gone to the zoo ever since I was really little, and my mother would tell me, when we go, she said, you knew where all the animals were. And she said, you were just little. And we had to visit each and every single one of them. You wouldn't leave until you had done that. And I continued that as a teenager, as an adult. I would always go back and visit the animals at the Philadelphia Zoo, which is where I went as a kid. And I was there one day, and this was after I had become a Reiki practitioner and I believe a Reiki master. Yeah. And I was standing in front of the jaguar. Here comes night sky. The dark eclipse of the screen as the black cat walks across.
Yeah.
And I'm standing in front of the jaguar enclosure, which was the modern kind with the glass on it. So you're pretty close. And the jaguar was pacing, very agitated. And I was with another Reiki practitioner, and it just felt like he needed something. So I said, well, let's ask permission and see if he'd like some Reiki. So we began offering him Reiki, and he stopped pacing, and he came straight up to the glass. So he was like, inches away from us. And then he turned around. So his back was to us, and he laid down with his hindquarters right up against the glass and a straight shot right up his back. And we're sending Reiki, and you can watch the muscles just relax. And he turned his head and he looked straight into my eyes. Now, zoo animals don't normally do that. Staring directly into an animal's eyes can be considered a form of aggression.
Yeah.
And so when I'm, with them, I'll close my eyes or look slightly off to the side and look back. So you're not staring.
Yeah.
But he just went right into my eyeballs, and his eyes were really soft and invited me in. And I fell into this place where we weren't jaguar and we weren't a human. We were the spirits that we are. And he greeted me as an equal, and which was like, and I realized that he was a Reiki master, that he was a master teacher, and he was basically, he allowed us to basically merge, is the only way I can put it. It was a very profound experience. And it blew me away, and I was so deeply touched by this that I couldn't take a picture. Dug out one when I went home and back to Massachusetts, and found one that I'd taken like 2 years before. And I was in conversation with an animal communicator who happened to be going to teach an animal communication class at my house, because in those days I wasn't calling myself an animal communicator. I hadn't realized that that's what I've been doing all my life. But and I told her the story, and she said, how about after class we go and see if we can connect with him, see what message he might have. And I said, okay. And the message came back that he was here, he had a purpose, he had come to this place. But he was feeling that he couldn't connect with the people who came and passed in front of, his enclosure. They weren't seeing him for who he was. They were looking at him for what he was. People didn't know.
Right. Right.
The zoo doesn't know, And anyways, that's a whole rabbit hole I go down. Things are better nowadays. But in those days, they were purely physical. And we said, okay, how can we help? And there was something I could do for him. And the animal communicator asked, are there other animals there at the zoo that, want or need something? And he says, I don't know, I'll ask. So he came back and he said, they'd like you to make the grounds of the Philadelphia Zoo safe, sacred space. And we looked at each other and went, know what that is? Do you? No idea. Yeah. And so he asked basically for a ceremony. And the animal communicator and I agreed to set something up. And she said, I'll be the liaison between, him and the animals, but you're going to need to do the ceremony. And I went, what? Seriously? I don't know anything about this. I'm just a Reiki practitioner. And it just so happened that I ended up at an event. I'm going to cut this really short. And it was an event that brought the New Age community together with Native American community to talk about appropriation, cultural appropriation. We weren't calling it that back then, and while I was there, the universe went, go over there, go to that seminar. And I'm like, but it's Shamanism, Sorcery, and Black Magic was the title.
That's a draw card.
And that was where it was basically a demonstration, introduction, if you will, to the fact that energy is real. And it was my first introduction to Peruvian shamanism. And during that, I had an encounter with a stone person who basically pointed at me and said, you've been doing this for a really long time. You've just forgotten. And in that instant, I realized that all of the experiences that I've been pushing under the rug as under the heading of Reiki was actually shamanic, and then I was scared to death to study shamanism but I couldn't ignore it. They knew I couldn't once they shoved it in my face. So that's how I ended up in shamanism, and it just so happened that the training was 1 week before the scheduled ceremony for the zoo animals at the Philadelphia Zoo. And I ended up in shamanic training, and they taught us how to do fire ceremony and sent us home, patted us on the head and say, okay, practice, but privately. And I'm like, I have a public ceremony with people coming next weekend.
Wow, no pressure.
So that was my first fire ceremony.
Yeah.
Nothing like throwing me in the deep end.
Yeah.
And it was during that we had an amazing experience. It's a very long story. Someday I hope to get the book out. And when I revisited, oh man, there's so much of this story I'm cutting out, but we had the involvement of the animals. We had the involvement of the spirit world. We had people coming from out of state for this in my little backyard to answer the call of the animals. Bless them. And we got contacted by an artist in Maine later who said, I've been working with the animals that died in the fire at the Philadelphia Zoo on Christmas Eve. And I went, what fire? I didn't know. Because, we didn't have the internet back then. And so she had been sitting with the spirits of the animals. She had felt called to do this. She didn't even live in Philadelphia. She lived in Maine. She interviewed keepers, everybody that knew them, worked with photos. And she said the spirits of the animals gathered in her studio, and she did individual paintings of each of the animals that died. And then when she finished them, she didn't know what to do with them. So she went to a Native American grandmother's council, and they sat with the paintings. And they came back and they said they'd like the paintings to go back to the city where the people who would love them and known them for many years could come and see the paintings. And they could be with them again. And then they asked to have the paintings taken to each of the respective countries of origin of these were primates that had died in the fire. So orangutans and other apes. And she made it happen, and she did it with an art grant too. And so she took the paintings to those countries like the Cameroons for the gorillas, even though everybody was captive born. The paintings went to the country of origin, and there was ceremony, and they were buried in the earth.
Goodness.
She was contacting us because somehow the newsletter of the Animal Communicator had made its way to Maine.
Yeah.
Again, no, right?
Yeah.
And she wanted to invite us to this exhibit in Philadelphia of the paintings. And I was able to go, and I walked in and I was like, oh my God. I hadn't realized the full impact at that moment. I saw those paintings, and the spirits of the animals were literally exuding from the paintings. They were there. And I realized that I knew each and every one of them. It was a powerful moment.
I must say at this point, I can't help but put the pieces together where you were asked to make this a sacred place, unbeknownst to you of what was to come, what was to happen. It never fails to amaze me how the animals guide. They guide us, whether it's here in the physical or whether it's spiritually. What a blessing that for people like yourself that firstly listen, and secondly adhere to what is being given to you, adhere to the guidance that they're giving you, because it's a humble thing to do that.
I didn't know any better.
And that's why. And that's why.
I knew that I didn't know anything because I didn't know anything at that time.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, well, because I can feel energy, so I could feel that this was, the energy I was supposed to follow. But I had no idea what I was doing.
No.
But that's okay. They sent me lots of guides and lots of support, and still back at this exhibit of the paintings, I'm talking to the artist, Sally Linder, and she had friends there that helped her set this up. It was at Independence Mall across from Independence Hall in Philadelphia, so in the very historic district. And Independence Mall it has a roof and it has concrete pillars. So it's open air. And I'm talking to her, and all of a sudden her friends are like, oh my God, look. And I look up, and 6 feet away from me, there is a live red-tailed hawk flying through the exhibit of the paintings and then exits. And I was like, wow, you don't see that every day.
Yeah.
I went back to Massachusetts. I told Eagle Mother, who was a Native American Abenaki woman, she'd been part of the ceremony from a distance. I had people volunteering to basically support this energetically that knew a lot more than I did. And I told her the story about the red-tailed hawk, and she looks at me and she goes, well, you know what red-tailed hawk stands for? And I said, no, because, of course, I didn't know anything. And she said, it stands for fire.
Oh, my God.
Ever since then, I've had a connection with red-tailed hawk. I've had a red-tailed hawk fly next to my car window. You know, like I'm driving down the road and he's literally right there and has shown up for ceremonies and stuff, physical ones, you know, not just in spirit. But that just blew me away.
That's incredible. When animals follow you or you see them repeatedly in this world, in the physical world, would you say that these animals are, in a sense, a guide, or are they here to send a message? Are they here for protection? Why do animals show up for us? Not something like a bird flying overhead, because that's what birds do, they fly overhead, but I mean something that seems a little out of the ordinary, such as the red-tailed hawk showing up at this particular event, this place, and then repeatedly showing up for you. How can people understand or differentiate when an animal has come for a message or come for a purpose, as opposed to they just happen to be there at the time?
Really good question, and I'm not sure if I can answer it, because I'll answer it this way. What I try to do is go, oh, aren't you beautiful? You know, wow. Be present and see what I might feel, sense, perceive. Sometimes I'll ask, you know, but I go by the feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a Cooper's hawk land on my Adirondack chair in the backyard. And I said, wow. And the impression I got from Cooper's hawk was that it was hunting and had missed its strike. The bird went into the hedge. So it's very much trying to get out of my head and go, hey, hawk is sitting on the chair I sit in all the time, which in this case just happened to be a sturdy perch. You know, nothing significant for me per se, other than, wow, I got to observe, you know, one of my wild neighbors being relaxed and comfortable around me. Because he was like, yeah, I know you're there, and you know, I'm not gonna walk up to him, you know, scare him off. But he could see me. He knew I was there. And I just said, I'll stand right here and, you know, admire you.
Sometimes it can be a really subtle thing, can't it? We have kookaburras here in Australia, and they're known for their laugh. Well, it sounds like a laugh, you know.
I love their laugh.
I know, it's great. And when there's 2 or 3 of them, you can't help but I start laughing myself, because they just sound, you know, they sound funny. And I was looking out my kitchen window, and I have an umbrella on a large metal stand, and right perched on top, probably about 7 or 8 feet in the air, one lone kookaburra. And he caught my eye, and I looked at him, and he turned around and looked at me, and I'm waiting for him to laugh, and there's no laugh. He just sat there. And I thought, well, that's unusual. And he's looking at me and just holding my gaze. And I wanted to look away, but I sort of couldn't. Anyway, after a while, he just took off, and I thought, that was really bizarre. I wonder what that was all about. And I just got this super subtle little message saying, when was the last time you laughed? And I thought, oh, wow. Interestingly, I'd been through a very long period of time of very difficult personal things. And I thought to myself, when was the last time I laughed? I couldn't actually recall. And it was just so subtle. Yeah. And I just said, thank you for reminding me. Watch a comedy, have a laugh, bring joy back in, you know?
Oh, I do.
So sometimes when animals appear, it's always interesting, I think, to take the time to maybe have a look at what they mean. And there's a lot of information now
I think there's too much information. I mean, I can I mean, in the early days of all this, when I was just starting out, I would look at like Animal Speak, for example. That was the Bible of the day. Um,
Ted
and
Andrews, was it Ted
Ted
Andrews?
Andrews,
Yeah, yeah.
and his book was cool because it taught a lot about the natural habits and behavior of a lot of the animals or birds that we would encounter. But what I kept coming back to, and the animals kept bringing me back to, was stay out of your head. And Don Manuel Quispe, one of my Peruvian shamanic teachers, used to say, stay out of your head, perceive with your heart. And that's pretty much what the animals would drill at me too.
Right.
Do not overthink this. It's because each of those animals or those birds is an individual. There's no way they can stand for all the symbolism. They're, as you say, they're going about their day. And then there's moments where they might grace us with a message. But a lot of times we're so quick to go here to the head and not be quiet inside and go into that connection. I have learned so much from the zoo animal ambassadors by just standing there quietly and trying to be as empty as I can be, and also aware of my physical, like I'll stand slightly turned away, and I'm not staring, I'm looking, and then I'll look away, but just I'm here. And for listening to zoo animal ambassadors, when I go in ceremony, we're collecting their prayers. So we'll say, here we are. It's the first thing we do. We're here with the prayer stick because I let them know ahead of time we're coming. And so they put their prayers in. And then it's, okay, is how can we be of service,
And that's the perfect opening, because I wanted to talk to you about December, what's coming up in December this year, 2025. You have listening to the Zoo Animal Ambassadors 6-part class series coming up. And I believe that you will be focusing, correct me if I'm wrong, focusing on lions, tigers, wolves, and rhinos. That seems to be somewhat of the trouble spot at the present time in terms of their existence. So tell us a little bit about that. I know that you're offering local field trips in the Seattle area with teleclasses. And for those of us on the other side of the planet, you offer teleclasses as well, so that everyone can partake in this if they wish to. So tell us a bit about that and the 4 different zoos that you're going to be working with at this time around.
Okay, so I've been doing this, I think, since about 2013. I've been going to the zoos all my life, but I've made it into, once they had put me through, they being the spirit world and the animals and the zoo animals and the wild animals, I started to create an event and a training for people from everything that they had taught me so that people could do this too. Because I'm just one person. And I can't go to all of the zoos or all of the sanctuaries or all of the roadside zoos, the bad places too. And so here in the Seattle area, we're blessed to have 4 zoos, sanctuaries, whatever you want to call them. Woodland Park Zoo is the largest here in Seattle. And then there's Point Defiance Zoo down near Tacoma, Washington, which is Point Defiance Zoo and Aquarium. So we get to work also with aquatic beings of all kinds. And Northwest Trek, which focuses on native wildlife, so everything that's native, like to the United States. And Cougar Mountain Zoo, which is a really fascinating place. It's the smallest one, but it's the one where keepers have the most amazing, intimate relationship with the animals there. So the animals are like so open to being present with the people if you show up, with the right mindset or heart set, better way to say it. So in December, we start with Point Defiance Zoo. In January, it is Northwest Trek. In February, it is Cougar Mountain Zoo. And then Woodland Park in March. But first, I teach people in the beginning of December, the background on this, how to show up, how to be present, how to prepare, how to collect the prayers, how to bring them to ceremony. And the purpose of all of this is it's the people and the animals working together in a very spiritual and energetic way, because the zoo animals are literally ambassadors for their wild cousins. And we, the people, are the ones that have, made a mess, let's say. Mm. But by being the hands and the feet and holding space for this and just going, here I am to be of service, we're not there for ourselves in the sense of, show me how cool it is to do this. It's a very humble, or at least I try to be, and teach people to be humble. But we have some amazing experiences, because when you show up in a way that's very different from the average zoo goer, the animals notice, and they also notice the energy.
You will be using...
Those prayer sticks are powerful.
Powerful, yeah. And is there any prerequisite for people? Do they need to know anything or anything, or you teach everything?
I teach them everything that they would need to know, and I, share stories. But we go, for those who might be wondering, well, how is this possible if I'm not in the Seattle area? One of the things that I do is I hold space energetically, but also take photos. I've been told by the spirit world that this is another way to tell the stories, to get people to see that and feel that connection. So yeah, I take photos, those who are there physically with us for the field trip, collect the prayers, and then, of course, bring the prayer sticks to ceremony. But then we have a telecall a couple of days later where I've had time to upload all the photos, and we get on the call, and I tell the stories, and I have photos to go with them or videos, and I also take them on a shamanic journey. So there are 4 master teachers who might have volunteered for that class, and it can be a different one every time. It may not be the ones that are listed, like the lions, the tigers, etc. It's whoever says, I want to do this. And I'll take them on a shamanic journey to meet with that particular animal and get a message from them. And those people who are on that shamanic journey can also have prepared their prayer stick and collect the prayers energetically during the shamanic journey, and then bring their prayer stick to ceremony.
Okay.
So all of this can be done by whether you're physically present, and this means that people can do this anywhere in the world with the animal ambassadors where they are.
That's beautiful and very powerful. And I see it's December 1?
Yeah, that's the first preparatory telecall. Yeah.
Through to March 23, 2026. And if you miss anything, replays are yeah, that's fantastic. Yep. So registration deadline is December 1 for field trips if you're in the Seattle area, and virtual options December 7 if it's virtual only. I see that. I would love to do that myself. I would love to be there in person. I've been threatening for years now to come over and do something with you, Rose.
Anytime, whether you want to come physically or energetically, we would welcome you.
Yeah, as a totally freaked out traveling in planes person, most of it's energetic for me. There's something about flying 35,000 feet above the earth with a little life jacket that just totally unnerves me. But that's okay. Thankfully, there's the virtual option. All the information with regards to listening to the Zoo Animal Ambassadors series is available on your website, reikishamanic.com. But I'll cover that again at the end.
Well, I'd like to share something exciting with you.
Yeah.
I just found out today the Cougar Mountain Zoo got 3 lion cubs.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh, and they're adorable.
They're so cute.
And the mountain lions there at Cougar Mountain Zoo are just amazing, and they've been an important part of the ceremonies. The tigers have been amazing. I mean, they have an area. I mean, first of all, they'll do the prayer sticks, and then we go to the behind the scenes area where they have like a mesh screen between you and the tigers. And the tigers will come up and greet us. And the screen is flexible. And so when they rub up against it, you can actually feel their whiskers.
Oh, wow.
And they love Reiki. Oh my God, do they love Reiki? It's like catnip. So they'll be like, oh, you know, you get to basically pet the whole tiger because they'll just run down your hands.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great experience. I remember Australia Zoo. They have a rather large tiger enclosure, and they bring the tigers into this area that is glass front, but it's a massive rock pool, swimming pool. Is they love the water. They just love the water. What I was watching when I was there, I was watching people watching the tigers. And what really intrigued me was the number of children, young children, that were right up face front to the glass, hands on the glass. They were so excited to see the tigers, and the tigers were in the water and coming right up to the kids. And there was the energy around the tigers was so playful and so loving. And there were people in there with the tigers. There were to make sure that everything was going safely for them. But the children, the connection between the children and the tigers was just beautiful to see. You could see them wanting to actually be physically in touch with one another.
Kali the tiger, Point Defiance Zoo and Aquarium.
Okay.
And this speaks to the children. I've actually couple children's stories, but in this one there was a family with very small children, actually probably several families, because there were more than you could attribute to one of those or two of those people, and they were very excited and excitable. And Kali she was raised from a cub by people, so she's chill with humans. And it's she was in the glass area, and they'd put straw down for her and a heating lamp so that she could, recline by the glass. And she was doing her best to be, like a non-threatening tiger lying there. And these kids were just shrieking. I mean, they were like, and the parents wanted them all to line up for a photo in front of the tiger. And there was one little 2-year-old boy who was like, and I thought, and that kid knows better.
Yeah.
He knows you don't turn your back to a predator. And the kids were uneasy about it too. And Kali was just like, I'm just sitting here minding my own business. But, it would be nice if the energy went down just a little bit.
Yeah.
And, and the kids left with the people, and we had been hanging back, my group. And I walked up to Kali and turned sideways and crouched down because of where she's lying down, and gave her a slow eye blink. And I said, that was a lot of energy. And I said, you did great. I said, would you like some Reiki? And she went, yes, please. And so I began offering her Reiki, and we have video of it, and you can just see her just go, the eyes close. She's lying there with closed eyes next to me. It was just beautiful. And I don't feel like I'm special. It's like everybody can learn Reiki. And if you don't have to learn Reiki, you can just learn to bring your energy down. You can teach your kids how to have a calm, quiet interaction so that they can have that connection, that experience. There's nothing wrong with kids being kids. But it's up to the adults I'm not judging the people. They don't know any better. The zoo doesn't educate people in how to have those kind of encounters because they don't know how to do that. But it is possible. And it amazing connections. I mean, I get chuffed at by tigers, for example. I've had lions walked up to me. It's just because I'm polite.
We've almost come full circle because we talked in the beginning about the animals wanting us to help people. And you've just pointed out that if we can help people understand, then they can teach their children a little better as well. And that brings me into something else that you're offering, which is a year-long self-paced course titled Sacred Rhythms. This really interested me. Of course, the zoo animal ambassadors interests me. I'm animal mad, you know that. But
I'm with you on that one, yeah.
Yeah. No, Sacred Rhythms is a year of nature's wisdom. And before you tell us about that, I understand that it focuses on stories and guidance from encounters with animals, plants, and the earth, and it's in alignment with the natural rhythms of each month. And I found that really intriguing. This course includes shamanic journeying, seasonal stories, wildlife video experiences, so much, so much. What is Sacred Rhythms all about in your own words, and why do you feel it is beneficial for people and animals?
Yeah, it's both of them. Well, we're living in times that I'm sure you would agree, people are disconnected from nature. I live in an urban environment. I'm in West Seattle, which is, the houses here are, there's not a lot of space between them. And about 5 years ago, I set up a wildlife cam in the backyard, thinking that I'd get some birds and squirrels at what I call the Wild Reiki Spa, which is this fountain, a water feature. And I discovered that my backyard is a urban wildlife Serengeti, especially when you have water.
Yeah.
I had no idea that every night I had the critter trail going through the backyard. I mean, there is a path that the opossums follow and the raccoons follow. And now we have a coyote. We've got owls. And all this happens at night. I mean, yes, I saw the birds and the squirrels and some of the neighborhood cats, during the daytime.
Yeah.
But at night, wow. And so I started to immerse myself in this learning by just observing, because it's not live streamed. So I'm looking at this hours later and learning. I found I can feel some of who they are, as well as, observe their behaviors and things and I've learned a lot. And, the purpose of the mission of my work is always to try to build those bridges. So it was like, how can we reconnect to people who live, shamanic journeys are great and trips to exotic locations are fun, but what about where we live?
Right.
And so the journey, it's all about urban. It's all about connection with the rhythms of nature where you're living. So we're trying to get people to reconnect with the Wairas, the wind people, the water, and of course, the animals themselves. So it's all about, each month is different. I'm working in coordination with another shamanic practitioner, Claudine Records, and she's handling the journey aspect. So she'll journey to find out what guidance, what does spirit want us to do for like November, for example, or December. And it's been fascinating because the theme for the month will determine what the activity, because there's two activities. One is something, a craft you can create that's in alignment with this. And another is a digital puzzle that you can put together from a photo. But it's an energetic photo that's kind of connected to everything that we're doing. And you get to follow, because I took the videos are all taken from the Wild Reiki Spa or the Wild Rose Cafe, which is right outside my office window. And it's all about observations, what I give the insights in the things that I write to go with the videos, but I try to edit them in such a way that you can just watch them, help people make that connection. Not necessarily with Mama Raccoon, for example, who has been a star of those videos now and she's, oh boy, bless her heart, she's come into the Wild Reiki Spa now during the daytime because she's old and she's arthritic. And I've set it up so that when she shows up at the Wild Reiki Spa, she gets some Reiki if she wants it. So she's starting to hang out in the backyard a little bit more than usual. They have a playlist of music for the month to kind of get into the feel of whatever it is. There's book recommendations. And there's also inspirational quotes that speak of the season. And so you don't have to go outside to connect with nature. But I feel like if you're following this, for me, it has deepened my connection in creating this. And feedback I'm getting from people is it seems to be having, somewhat of a similar impact for them. Again, this is a very new thing. I don't know anybody else is doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, can we realize this through the energy, through the participation, through the stories? Because I have stories that I'll put in, each month. It's this month, actually, for November, there's 2 stories. Kind of had to speak to the season and to the fact that it's Thanksgiving. So it's helping people reflect on their connections, and people can drop in at any time. It's like you don't have to start in like June because you want to be with the season that you're in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I figure that once it's complete, even people on the other side of the world who have the absolute opposite seasons to us could still do it.
Yeah.
So I guess December would be like our June for you, for example.
Yeah, it's the beginning of summer for us, and we have a whole batch of different animals. Seasonally, they come and go.
Yeah, but the principle is still the same for sacred rhythms, because it's like, I know it's not. It'd be cool to do it with Australian animals, but I've been observing obviously the ones that are in my backyard.
But I can tell you, you're right. You're 100% right. It does not matter where you are or what location you're in. Animals are.
They live in rhythm with the seasons.
And they all have something.
And we are so out of sync with that.
Yeah.
We don't, our ancestors, our recent ancestors, who were maybe farmers, for example, they lived in rhythm with the seasons.
Yeah.
But modern people don't. We are divorced. We've divorced ourselves from it. And it is crucial for our health, as well as the well-being of the animals and the planet, that we get synced up.
Speaking of being synced up, do you feel that people are becoming more aware, more awakened to the animal kingdom, to the fact that we are at least becoming aware or willing to awaken? I feel that as we become more connected to the animals and listen to them more, we won't need to give it a name or a title, because to me, when we call ourselves animal communicators, we're saying that we are separate from. And I'm finding that more people are becoming more aware of what the animals have to say to us. I'm certainly seeing it here in Australia with the rise of people fighting against or speaking out against shark nets.
I think a lot of people, like, for example, where I live, the coyotes have been coming back into our neighborhood after having been missing or gone for a while. And I find interestingly that my neighbors aren't up in arms. They're like, yeah, coyotes have to live too. And, because they have chickens, backyard chickens, or they have, domestic cats sometimes that go out. I have Tamerlan, who showed up as a starving stray tomcat, and, it's been a journey with him. So I try to have him in at night. So there's that awareness, that we have to share the urban environment because there's more documentaries being done on that. And this is where I think technology is good, because we're being shown a lot of videos by people who are having encounters with wildlife where the animal is clearly asking for help, and the person just drops everything and does, they're not an animal rescuer. They have no experience whatsoever, and they're responding.
Yeah.
And people are seeing this. And I believe that, in Tai Chi, what you focus on expands.
Yeah.
And so we're focusing, a lot of us, on our awareness. There are more animal communicators, or people who are taking classes in animal communication to discover essentially it's just about listening. And if you approach with an open heart, the animals can sense who might help them. And I believe that more of them are coming forward because we're seeing more and more of these videos and these stories. And then other people are watching it and they're going, oh, I'm in this situation and I could help. So I believe that there's a rising consciousness on both sides. And I think, I'm not saying that the ceremonies that I'm doing are the reason for this, because there's a lot of other people doing things out there too. We're all working together.
Yeah.
And I think that the animals are going, there are people that are listening. And the people are going, oh, we really can connect, with who we care about, whoever it is, that species.
Yeah. I saw a video the other day on Facebook. A gentleman stopped, I believe it was in Australia. A gentleman stopped and got out of his car. There was a massive scrub python, massive bush python crossing the road. And sadly, the majority of them lose their lives because people just speed and run over them. But this gentleman stopped and he got out of the car and he picked him up, and he was a big snake, a very big snake. And he picked him up and popped him over to that side of the road and put him down safely on the other side and got back in his car. And, I know for a fact that people here in Australia, we're very snake wary. We have, I believe, the top 10 of the deadliest snakes in the world here. And so there's always been this fearful thing about snakes. But we're learning more and more and more that if we just understand that this is where they live, this is what they do. They cross roads when they're wanting to get from A to B, just like we do. And it was wonderful to see this gentleman stop. And because a lot of people would have watched that video that were frightened of snakes. So even just seeing that one thing like, oh, that snake didn't respond in a way that we were told it would. It'd spin around and, choke us or whatever we're told. No, it was very grateful for being assisted to the other side of the road safely.
Right.
And for people to see that this gentleman wasn't harmed in any way, the snake wasn't going to harm him, to me speaks volumes. So you're right, there's so many of these videos out there now about people stopping and helping, and animals coming up to vehicles and asking for help, and your average Joe Schmo having that impetus, that sense of something that this animal's in trouble, and they follow fearlessly, they follow. And yeah, they do help them out. So you're right, technology is helping in a big way to show that there is more people willing to help, and also that the animals themselves are asking for help. I don't think we're too used to recognizing that.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, I've seen a lot of videos, where, of course, we have shifts in weather patterns because of climate change. And there's a lot of places where water is becoming a scarce commodity. And animals basically, they're thirsty, and somebody passing their water bottle to them, and the animal going, "Yes, thank you." I mean, frogs, squirrels, I've seen all kinds of videos like that.
Yeah. It helps.
Or what I saw recently that really tickled me was somebody cautiously turning on the water fountain for, I believe it was a raven, so the raven could get a drink of water.
Yeah, I think we're on the right track, Rose.
Yeah,
I hope so.
It's definitely different than it was when I first, became an adult and became more aware of, because I was involved in activism. And I mean, I'm still an activist in the sense of my work is literally activism. It just doesn't involve, carrying signs outside of testing facilities. A lot of that stuff has changed. The zoos have changed. I don't talk about this much, but there have been times when I've been allowed a different perspective into the zoo environment by the people who were there, not the higher ups. And so, there's an awareness. The people work closely with animals. Most of them in the more enlightened, care of animals, they know that they have feelings.
And hopefully more people will be able to feel confident to speak out about that as we progress in our world. Rose, before we go, I will ask you if you could share one message, just one message from the animals, perhaps some that you've worked with or in general, for the world right now, what would it be?
Two things jump to mind. Back a few years back, one of the lion families here at the Woodland Park Zoo, Xerxes and Adia. Xerxes was the male, Adia was the female. And there was a really big ceremony with them because of we were there anyways for listening to Zoo Animal Ambassadors, but we were doing a special event as well, special prayer stick, because of the death of Cecil the lion. And, Xerxes, the father, was very interactive with us for this. And he sent one of his sons, I believe, over to connect directly with us. But Adia was always off to the side. She was always present, but she would never charge us. I'm told by the people who were there that she was protective of her kids. And if they went up to the glass with the people, she would basically say, "Hey, you back off from my kid." She never did that with us. But I was feeling, we go through these cycles, where you just kind of feel like, God, it's too much and I'm not making, a dent. And, you have all of that self-doubt. And because the type of work I do is not something where I'm going to get a lot of direct feedback, like, with climate change, for example. It's like I do the work, I do what I ask me, but I'm not going to be like, wow, look, that changed because of what I
understand, yeah.
So I was at one of those kind of points of, gosh, this is really making a difference. And Adia looked me straight in the eyes and she said, "Don't stop." Now, she had never paid me any attention whatsoever. And I went, "Okay, I won't." And she passed away 3 weeks later.
Oh.
Unexpectedly. But she just, she drilled that into me when she said it.
Yeah.
And I went, Okay, I have my marching orders. So to everybody out there, don't stop. You know, there's a thing I just posted recently for inspirational quotes, and I'll probably get this wrong. Something like, no one can do everything, and, you know, but everybody can do something.
Yeah.
Focus on what you can do.
Yeah.
And that can be as simple as offering, you know, healthy bird seed to the birds.
Yeah.
Listening for messages. Listening is the other message they want me to give. You know, stop spending so much time up here in your head trying to figure out what the message is. You have to move into your body. You have to be grounded, balanced, and centered. That's something I try to teach all of my students, whatever class they're in. And, you know, focus from the heart. Feel your way into things. Be present and try not to chatter too much in your mind. But yeah, just try. You know, just make yourself available. That's the thing that gets the animal's attention. When you try and you say, you know, be my teacher.
Yeah.
You know, I want to learn. I'm still learning. I don't know. You know, I show up and I go, okay, what are we doing today?
So just be present and be still and
present, be still, listen.
Yeah.
And don't stop.
Yeah. Don't stop.
The things that you feel guided, that you're passionate about, that you feel guided to do.
It is difficult. It is difficult doing the work that you do because
there's a ton of distractions in our world.
Yeah.
That's the bad side of technology.
It is, and also, as you say, it's you don't necessarily get feedback for the work that you're doing, and that can sometimes feel a little discouraging. But the animals always have a way of supporting you, of urging you on, and saying, you know, keep going.
Yeah, like every so often I get that.
Yeah.
You know, like Mama Raccoon looking directly in the camera at me. I mean, I know she have just started doing that recently. She knows that I'm watching, even though if I'm not watching live.
Yeah. About a year and a half ago, I was in my laundry and I looked outside and there was 2 rats. And obviously the short version is someone had put rat bait down. And they'd come to my yard and they were dying. And they literally came to a couple of feet in front of me. I went outside, I sat with them. I just sat with them and I held space and I just asked the Archangel Felier, I think it is, who looks after the animals. I knew they were going to transition and I asked for them to have a peaceful transition and for their soul to be carried gently home. Anyway, they both passed. I thought it was mind-boggling that they both came to me because rats aren't really trusting of humans. Yeah. I buried them. I covered them in the desert rose petals and I buried them both. And I thought, that's extraordinary. What was more extraordinary, Rose, is that probably within a day or two, I looked out my kitchen window and there's 3 baby rats playing in broad daylight. Broad daylight, that's very brave. We've got a lot of birds here, including the cuckoos, and they're carnivores. And these 3 little babies were playing up the back, and I said to my husband, oh my God, look, they're babies, they're foraging. They were so tiny, Rose, they looked like little field mice, they were so small. And I just prayed and I asked for guidance and, you know, to sustain them and give them health and gave them water. Of course, they didn't come near me. I just put the water out and they came out eventually. And I believe those 3 little rats were the babies of those 2 that had passed away. And it was like, we're entrusting you with them. And, of course, I couldn't tell my friends because, you know, it's Australia and rats are the enemy. But to me, every animal is sacred. So I kept it to myself. And And I believe they, the next thing I was watching them grow up into teenagers, and then they just disappeared. But I had a sense that they were okay, they were safe, and they'd found a safe way out, because we've got cane fields a ways, not far from us. And to me, I felt really honoured, like very sad that mum and dad had suffered so, but for the babies to grow up, for them to come to me, what a blessing! What an incredible blessing. To me, that's as important as some human being saying, "I've only got weeks to live. I'm entrusting my child to you, even though you're a stranger. I'm going to do that." It's like, wow, and that's the same level it felt to me for doing that. So we all have to do our thing, and we don't get much feedback, but here we are, you and me, 12 years later, still loving these beautiful beings and still doing the best that we can to be the voice for them in any way that we can. And thankfully, I think they're grateful in a beautiful way. I think they're very grateful.
I love them, and I'll do, what they ask of me.
Yeah. And that's beautiful, because you're putting them before your own self. And maybe they pick, maybe they do choose people that do prefer to be in that time alone, that do prefer to be out of the spotlight. There's a reason for it. It's not about people that sometimes do it because of the spotlight, and other people do it behind the scenes. And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong.
Yeah, no, I think we need
both.
People like Steve Irwin, for example, and his family. But yeah, I've always been more comfortable doing the ceremonies and just existing, kind of like behind the scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're the go-to. And you're the first person that came to my mind, even after all these years.
Okay, well, I'm deeply honored. Thank you.
So you are being heard, because if 12 years later I still think of you first, that speaks volumes.
Thank you.
You're
That's
very
all
welcome.
I can say to that. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And you know what? Is there anything else that you'd like to speak of or speak out before we
No, I can't.
go today?
I mean, they got a few messages in there. Oh, by the way, I have to get Tamerlan. He's now banging at the door.
Banging on the door.
I'll be right back.
Okay. If people want to get in contact with you and see that all that you have to offer, and there is so much, Rose, they can reach you at reikishamanic.com, and you are on Facebook also, I believe.
And Instagram.
Under
Threads, under
Reiki Shamanic.
Might be Wild Reiki in some places, but if they look up Rose DeDan, they'll probably find me.
Okay.
But I mean, if they go to my website, there's,
find everything. They'll find it.
Yeah.
You'll find everything. Okay. Well, thank you, Rose, once again for your time, your knowledge, your wisdom, your guidance, and your offerings. I am grateful for all that you do. I know the animals are all grateful for all that you do, and I'm sure the listeners will be more than grateful when they visit your website and see what you can offer as well. Rose DeDan, thank you so much for your time today.
And thank you. It was been wonderful talking with you, with a fellow animal lover.
Yeah, we are. Okay, bye for now. And that's where we'll leave today's episode. So thank you so much for spending this time with me on Enlightened Connections. If you'd like to stay connected, you'll find me at lisaastonmichael.com and on YouTube at Lisa Aston Michael, Instagram and Facebook and all the usuals. And all the links are in the show notes for you as well. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd be so grateful if you followed or subscribed to the podcast and perhaps shared it with a friend who might also find inspiration here. It really helps this community grow. So until next time, remember every connection, whether people or animals, brings us closer to healing and understanding. And if you'd like to support this show, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/enlightenedwithlisa. And there's a couple of freebies there for you as my way of saying thank you so much for your time and for listening. And stay safe until next week.